Good evening, and welcome to St. James Parish. I welcome those who are here live with us this evening and those who are worshiping with us online. There's a lot going on at St. James Parish, and I do invite you to go to our website. We have the Sunday services both downtown and at Mount Lebanon Chapel. Lots of things going on during the week. But tonight, this is a very special evening as part of our speaker series for the author to the community. And for the little I know about Dr. Charles, we are really in for a treat tonight. So here to introduce him is our own Steve Coggins. So welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for being here for Finding Deeper Ground, Living from the Spiritual Heart, to be given by my friend Winston Charles. Perhaps you thought, when you were first coming to this, that you were going to be hearing from a mystic who's going to be talking to you about finding deeper ground, living from the spiritual heart, somebody that didn't have to live in the rough and tumble of the world. But you've had time to read his biography online, and that which has been passed out to you. You know that he served as rector of Christ Church in Raleigh when Louise and I were living in Raleigh. And so perhaps you thought, well, you know, I can understand why anybody would want to escape from here, from having to preside over Louise and Steve being in the congregation. And then, in 15 years or so hence, he went off to the mountaintop and develop these insights, and he could speak to you about finding deeper ground and living from the spiritual heart. And that's a rational thought. But I submit to you that the truth is something different. Picture Christ Church in downtown Raleigh on Capitol Square, situated in between our Supreme Court, the legislature, the Capitol, Fortune 500 companies within a couple of blocks of the burgeoning Research Triangle Park, and its members being very vocal and active at Christ Church. Picture someone being come and asked to take the position of rector there after a tenure of a beloved rector of more than 35 years. Picture that during his tenure, Christ Church was completely renovated, during the course of which they discovered Bishop Ravenscroft was indeed buried within and beloved sanctuary, just like our Bishop Atkinson here. Picture that he expanded the campus to include those next door apartments so that Christ Church would ultimately be able to control the block that is around it. An issue which we've had to deal with, as you know, very much here at St. James. Picture that they expanded the ministry of acquiring St. Saviour's Church, and from St. Saviour's operating what is in effect a devout version of the Harrelson Center here across the street from us to serve the entire Raleigh community. Picture that he dramatically expanded and improved the adult and the children education program and came up with innovative stewardship programs. And picture that he did all of this during the schism precipitated by those who reacted to Bishop Robinson. I submit to you that the only way that was possible to do was if Winston was already anchored in deeper ground, that lived that entire experience from the spiritual heart. Welcome, Winston Charles.
Thank you, Steve, for those really wonderful and kind words, maybe even overly generous words. But it's so good to be here with you, St. James Parish in Wilmington, and with those of you who are online joining us this evening. I'm very grateful for people of St. James and for the committee for inviting me to come and share a little bit of my own spiritual journey with you tonight. It's wonderful to be here. So as you sort of heard, after more than 30 years of parish ministry, culminating in 15 plus years as the rector of Christ Church in Raleigh, I felt in my body that it was time for a new phase of my spiritual journey. Although I really did not know exactly what form that might take or what that might entail. The only thing that I did know was that I wanted to accompany people on their spiritual journey. And it was this that led me to the Shalem Institute for Spiritual Formation to be trained as a spiritual director. The Shalem Institute for Spiritual Formation for almost 50 years now has been reclaiming the ancient Christian tradition of contemplative prayer and spirituality, contemplative living and loving, following in the way of Jesus, the wisdom teacher. We in the West, especially since the Enlightenment, had lost, or more accurately been deprived of, this vital part of the way of Jesus. Now, for more than a decade, I have traveled this path and found such fruitful wisdom and liberating consciousness that has shaken some of my unexamined assumptions and shifted the perspective from which I view myself and others, and indeed the entire flow of history. In terms more familiar to the Eastern religions, it has been an ongoing process of awakening, not unrelated to the awakening of our nation and our world during these challenging times. For all of this, I am deeply grateful. Several years ago, Shalem invited Mirabai Starr to speak at the Gerald May Seminar, which is an annual event that Shalem sponsors. Ms. Starr is a cultural Jew, practicing Buddhist, and a scholarly translator of Christian contemplative texts such as The Dark Night of the Soul, that was written in the 16th century by the Spanish Christian mystic St. John of the Cross. I was asked to be her chauffeur back on Friday night and then on Saturday morning to bring her back to where we were gathering. On Friday night, she spoke so beautifully about the necessity of acknowledging the feminine side of the divine. And after I let her off, I was thinking about that, and after much thought, I decided that I would talk with her how I agreed so much with what she said, and also that I always think that there needs to be a balanced recognition of the feminine and masculine side of God, and something much more than either one of that, and holding all of these together. And so when I picked her up, I did a very beautiful job of presenting this. And afterwards, she was silent for a while, and then finally she so graciously replied, said, "Well, you can say that because you're an old white dude." Well, I was sort of speechless at that diagnosis. And I thought about it later, and I said, well, old, well, you know, gray hair, okay. White, well, undeniable, unavoidable. And dude, hey, old white dude. So since that time, I've had a lot of fun laughing about Mirabai Starr diagnosis of me. And actually, it's meant a lot to me. I've been very grateful for that moment with Mirabai, and for many such moments, because they have helped to open my eyes and to open my heart. It was an awakening as to how much I have benefited from my whiteness and maleness and privileged life, and also from the challenges that I have met. Because the challenges have enabled me to pray about what do I do with this given condition of my life. It and many moments have placed very clearly before my eyes and in my heart the need for deep, deep listening. Often without responding, defending, reacting, simply listening with vulnerable intentionality. Standing not on any ground of privilege, but on the deeper and surer ground of the grace and love of the beloved. The 18th chapter of Luke begins in this way. Then Jesus told them a parable about the need to pray always and not to lose heart, followed by the wonderful parable of the importunate widow, the one where a woman bugs the justice with her persistent complaints for justice, so much so until finally the judge sort of throws up his hands and says, though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice so that she may not wear me out by continually coming. Now, who said that Jesus didn't have a sense of humor? Every time I think about that scene with the woman and the justice who finally just threw up his hands, I just have to smile and laugh. Paul picks up on this parable in the 5th chapter of 1 Thessalonians as he gives 3 bits of wisdom for living life to its fullness. Rejoice always. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances. Now, I always wondered about that, but especially about pray without ceasing. I mean, how do you do that anyway? There is a tradition in contemplative Christianity of the Jesus prayer that goes back to the ancient monks of the Egyptian desert in the 4th century. One repeats throughout the day silently to oneself, and there are various versions of the Jesus prayer. This is the shortest and simplest, but repeating, Jesus have mercy on me. Jesus have mercy on me. Jesus have mercy on me. And until it becomes an interior rhythm, almost like the rhythm of breathing. And this shapes and forms one from the inside out. But as valid as this practice is, this particular way of praying without ceasing never stuck with me. But what has stuck, like super glue, is to understand praying without ceasing as actually living from a deeper consciousness, a deeper reality, a deeper communion with the holy. In the language of Shalem, this is the spiritual heart, that place that is deep, deep within, where the divine spirit is in holy communion with my unique, God-created, God-nurtured, God-protected spirit in a mutual indwelling. And the same is true for you, for your spiritual heart, wherein God's spirit resides in holy communion with your unique human spirit. After all, we all, and I mean all, are created in the image of God, and thereby carry this image within us. Our spiritual journey is to open to these spiritual depths from which flow living waters, and then to live from that deep place rather than from fear or anxiety or neediness or meanness or defensiveness or self-importance. When we live from the authentic God-created self, even imperfectly, as all of us will do, we are praying without ceasing. It is to this deeper consciousness that we are invited. Another way to name this praying without ceasing, this living from a deeper consciousness, is being present with the presence, which I think is one of the best definitions of prayer. Being present with the divine presence. Praying without ceasing is living from an interior heart, an inner center, wherein we are consistently, or honestly, more accurately, we consistently return to being present with the presence. In its place, it is a place of mutual indwelling, wherein Christ abides in us and we abide in the beloved. Shalane has a nice little phrase that invites such deep listening and deep living. Lean back into the spiritual heart, and then lean forward with compassion and courage and creativity. Lean back into this place of grace and healing, deeper consciousness for discernment about what the next best step might be to take in the spiritual journey, in a relationship, in dealing with whatever we are dealing with in life. Not blindly reacting without awareness, but rather responding with love. Love for ourselves, love for others. Whenever we feel confused or threatened or overly confident or beaten down or exhausted or wearied or self-important, you name it, lean back into the spiritual heart. For being held and healed and empowered by love to lean forward with courage and compassion and creativity. The spiritual heart holds acres of grace that enable us to breathe, to be free, to be, to open to the spaciousness that allows for gratitude and compassion and courage and creativity. Here, we can listen deeply beneath all the noise that's within our heads, the noise which is outside, both interior and exterior, to discern what the Spirit seems to invite for the next best step on our spiritual journey. What to do, or what to say, or what to think. It may be to do nothing except to listen. Or it may be to speak the truth in love as you see it at the moment. Always seeing yourself and others as bearers of the image of God. always listening deeply to the other person and also to the beloved. A good friend of mine shared an experience she had while she was in contemplative silence. She lives in a retirement center and on the 3rd floor, and out her window she looks over a small patch of grass and then over beyond that into the dark wood. I thought when she started talking about it that it was a dream, but no dream. She was awake, so it was more like an awake dream. And in that dream, that awake dream, she was invited to come into the dark wood, into the darkness where she could not see. With a sense of dread in her awake dream, she walked across the lawn and stopped at the edge of the dark wood, being held back by fear and trepidation. Finally, she found enough courage to take the first step into the darkness. As her foot touched the ground on this first step, the ground lit up beneath her foot. And then she took another step, and the ground lit up beneath her foot. Just enough to know what the next step might be, and the next, and the next, and the next. Your word is a lantern to my feet and a light upon my path. Psalm 119. This is how discernment works. One step at a time. Trusting that with ongoing and continuing discernment, the way will be revealed one step at a time. As was the case with my friend, the darkness seemed fearful, but it turned out to be rich, filled with richness that led her into the way of fullness of life. Lean back into the spiritual heart, and then lean forward with courage and compassion and creativity, standing in holy communion with the beloved. Having grown up in the Episcopal tradition from a very young age, I heard on Good Friday many sermons on the last words of Christ. Perhaps a number of you can identify with that. From the very beginning, who knows how young I was, the one saying that struck me the deepest was, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Now, how could Jesus say that? Nailed to the cross, spit upon, cursed, rejected. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus was living from a different place, from the spiritual heart, wherein his unique human spirit was in holy communion with the divine spirit, mutual indwelling. He was speaking from a deeper consciousness, from a place of unfathomable love. We are invited into this different place, this deeper consciousness from which to live fullness of life. It is to this place that we are called, each of us, in our own unique way. It is this way of living and loving that is the dynamic of our faith. that opens us to a way that is totally surprising, even at times earth-shaking, transformative. It is this deeper consciousness and communion with the beloved that offers the resources to respond to whatever confronts us. And we have had much to confront us over the past months. Jesus invites us into this journey just as he invited Mary Magdalene and Martha, James and John, the Samaritan woman at the well, Peter and Andrew, and persons just like you and me through the centuries. It is at one and the same time a simple journey and a challenging journey. The depths of the gracious love of God will never be exhausted. Never, never. This is a journey for a lifetime. It is one that involves becoming more aware of our shadow side. That is, our assumptions and reactivity that lay unexamined. And because of this shadow side that all of us have within us, we blindly live out imperfect strategies that at some time in the past perhaps were somewhat effective for us, but now block us from the fullness of life and love and from discovering who we truly are. These exercise tremendous and unexamined control over how we perceive things and events, what we see and what we don't see, what is frightful and what is friendly, what we are willing to open to or what causes us to close up and shut down. Just like Mirabai Starr, shocking me into a deeper understanding of privilege and prejudice, there are many things that if we have the courage to be intentionally vulnerable and open, to take that first step into the dark woods, these can help us unlock that deeper reality of Holy Communion with the divine, and thereby continue to grow into the fullness of who we are created and called to be and to become. We can follow in the footsteps of Jesus and live from that deeper consciousness, always returning to the source when we stumble, and we will stumble many times. For we too so often know not what we do. A key that opens this door to deeper consciousness is holy silence and sacred stillness. In order to break the hold that our overactive mind and our, that I like to call, little needy ego friend have over us, we need regular practice in quieting the mind, calming the feelings, sensing the body, simply being present in the presence, God's presence. As a way of inviting us into a taste of holy silence and sacred stillness, I offer a chant based on the words of Psalm 46. What I would say as I sing this chant, just let this chant embrace you and hold you. Don't try to figure it out or get something out of it. Let it help you to be present with the presence, nothing more. As simple as that. I'm going to be using the bell several times this evening. The bell is a beautiful way of sort of calling us into a different place. So I'll ring the bell before I sing this chant twice, and then I'll ring the bell to come out of the silence. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still and be. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still and be. Thomas Merton, in the 20th century, was one of the early reclaimers of the contemplative Christian tradition that the West had lost touch of. He gathered in a little book a few of the wisdom sayings preserved by the Eastern Orthodox Church. These sayings are from the desert elders of the 4th century who had gone into the wilderness of African Egypt in order to find deeper connection with the Holy One, to journey more faithfully with Jesus. Here's one little story that unveils the importance of holy silence as deep listening, as prayer. Let me just set the scene, and it is that a young monk approaches an elder for advice. And this is the short little vignette. A certain brother went to Abbot Moses in Skeet and asked him for a good word. And the elder said to him, "Go sit in the silence of your cell. And the silence of your cell will teach you everything." To which I always imagine the young brother responded, "What? What in the world are you talking about? The silence of your cell will teach you everything." And we might respond in a similar way. Nonetheless, experience has taught me that being still and silent with an open heart to the heart of God can shape and form us in a deep way so that we are able to hear holy wisdom that comes from nowhere else. The importance of entering into holy silence is to slow down the overactive mind. The mind, our minds, are such a marvelous part of who we are as humans. Now we can blast 4 astronauts into space, and 24 hours later they're entering the International Space Station orbiting the Earth. The mind is a marvelous thing. But the mind also can be a distraction, taking us down long, long paths of worry or despair or self-adulation. Often, the mind is out of control. And by doing that, it's controlling us. If we are to open to the deeper consciousness and the Holy Communion within, we need to quieten the mind, simply to stop. We all of us, have 3 centers of knowing, and each has its own wisdom to share with us. The thinking mind, the feeling heart, and not the spiritual heart, but the feeling heart where the emotions are, and the sensing body, our embodied selves, our incarnate selves. When we lean back into the spiritual heart, we draw from all 3 of these centers of knowing simultaneously. For the spiritual heart is the name or the poetic image for that place within of mutual indwelling, a place of integration and wholeness and discernment. We look for this balance. So we don't want to exclude the thinking mind. It has something very valuable to offer us. But we want to slow it down so that we can listen to the feelings and even more to the sensations of the body. It is like we want to say to the mind, I love to call the mind this, marvelous mystic mind, we are going on a spiritual journey, and we want you to come along because you have something to help us with. But you cannot drive. Because the mind will drive us into the ditch every time. To come at this from a different angle, let me share a poem by Dana Falls entitled, Let the Mind Be the Mind. Now, I turn to poetry, not just because of the intellectual content of poems of this poem, for this would be, again, relying only on the mind, only on the thinking center. Poetry and chants, among other things, resonate with all 3 centers of knowing. The thinking center of the mind, the feeling center of the heart, the moving center of the sensing body. Thoughts, emotions, sensations are all engaged by poetry and chants. Each with its own wisdom to give. So, as I read this poem, what I would like to invite you to do is simply to open and to be present to what is. Allow the poem to take you into a deeper place. A place where you can quiet the mind and calm the emotions and sense the body's sensations. Once again, I'll use the bell. Let the mind be the mind. Behind its restless activity, just one layer deeper is stillness. And beneath even that is an ocean of mystery and truth. Swim in this eternal sea until you know yourself to be infinity. And bring that knowing back into your day. Why struggle to be what you are already? Let the mind be the mind, but don't bind yourself to its limited reality. Trust your experience of vastness. Trust the truth that never loses potency or disappears in fear. Let the mind be the mind, and identify not with thought, but silence. Not too long ago, I walked out of our house and saw on the sidewalk in front of our home a large, very orange sign that said in large letters, "Be prepared to stop." The moment I saw that, I thought, I need to get a picture of that. For this is just perfect for calling us into contemplative presence. Immediately, be prepared to stop. Stop the runaway thinking mind. Stop the roiling emotions of the feeling heart. Stop and sense the sensations of the body, grounded to the earth, the smells, the sounds, the taste, the rhythm of the breath in and out, the heart beating, sending lifeblood through the body. Be prepared to stop and to be present to the presence. That is what we need to do in order to enter holy silence and to know that deeper communion with the divine. We need to be able to listen deeply beneath the noise of our mind, our worries, our regrets, even beneath the noise of our joys. We need to practice this spiritual practice of stopping. Like a pianist or a gymnast or a golfer, we need to practice stopping, quieting the mind, calming the feelings, sensing the body, opening to the wisdom that is ours to receive, leaning back into the spiritual heart for comfort and healing and discernment, and then leaning forward with courage and compassion and creativity. We need to do this to truly live and to truly love. This is the way we can, and perhaps it is the only way we can, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances. There are manifold contemplative prayer practices that open this door to a deeper consciousness from which we can live our lives, where we can live our lives more fully, more gratefully, more effectively, less stressfully, more lovingly, more joyfully. Jesus, the wisdom teacher, said to his disciples and to us, "I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete." Here are just a few of these contemplative prayer practices. Centering prayer, Lectio Divina, sacred reading of Scripture, Lectio Divina with poetry or spiritual text, the welcoming prayer, praying with icons or images, praying with prayer beads, walking the labyrinth, sensing the body connection with the earth, and body movement like slow walking, yoga, tai chi, qigong. As we do these with the intent of opening our hearts to the heart of God, these are prayer. Prayer that shapes and forms us and empowers us for life, being present with the presence. Living here in Wilmington, close to the beauty of the sea and the marshes, you have such golden opportunities to enter into the holy silence when, as the poet Mary Oliver says, you may walk slowly and bow often. Having a deep connection with creation is such a critical part of the contemplative way, realizing that we are one with creation, that we are creation cousins with all that is, so to speak, for we all have the same Creator. This contemplative connection with creation can be healing, restorative, formative, life-giving, not just through the mind, but through the emotions and the sensations of the body as well. The key is to quieten the mind and allow the body to sense all that is around us, bringing us into the present moment, into the now, receiving whatever the Holy One raises up within and giving thanks. The body is always in the now, in the present moment. That is its gift and the source of its wisdom. Having grown up in South Carolina, for many years we have gone to Pawleys Island and Litchfield to the Grand Strand. For the past several years, we have stayed at Marsh House on Litchfield Beach. As the name indicates, the back porch of Marsh House offers a direct view of the beautiful, vibrant, gentle marshes that separate Litchfield Beach from the mainland. A 3-minute walk brings us to the beach, where we love to see sunrises and moonrises over the Atlantic. Before the sun comes up, I often walk these 3 minutes to the beach in the gentle darkness of the pre-dawn. My intent is to find contemplative spaciousness as I greet the new day. Just so, when I get to the shore, I remove my shoes, for this is holy ground. I walk to the edge of the water, waves gently caressing my feet, then turn and walk slowly with eyes focused on the point where I know the sun will rise, sensing my body, opening my heart, bathed in the pre-dawn reds and pinks and yellows splashed so beautifully across the sky. Present with the presence. When the least little arc of the sun breaks the horizon, I stop. With feet planted in the sand, washed by the shallow waves moving in and out, hearing the laughing gulls, feeling the breeze, smelling the salt water, watching the golden orb rise above the waters, being present in the moment. When the sun frees itself from the earth, I bow deeply in gratitude and turn into the day. Oneness with creation and poetry and chanting and sacred movement have ways of engaging all three centers of knowing in a balanced and wonderfully mysterious way, opening the heart to the heart of God. Here is a short poem by Wendell Berry, followed by a chant by Paulette Meyer called Stillness, both leading us into 3 minutes of holy silence. During the whole time, the poem, the chant, the silence, as much as possible, quieten the mind, calm the feelings, sense being present in the body, let go of worries and wonderings, simply be present to the presence. Whenever any thought or feeling pulls you away, just notice it. Let it go without any judgment. And ever so gently, return to the body and the present moment. Simply to be present with the presence of the beloved. I will invite the bell to ring to lead us into and through this contemplative time, the poem, the chant, the 3 minutes of silence. So allow yourselves to settle down. If you need to stand and stretch, do so now. Then find a comfortable place to sit, awake, attentive, open, receptive. The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Stillness, deep, deep within us. In small beginnings it flows into the living waters, the ocean of God. Through our stillness, God moves. Stillness, deep, deep within us. In small beginnings it flows into the living waters, the ocean of God. Through our stillness, God moves. A certain brother went to Abbot Moses in Skeet and asked him for a good word. And the elder said to him, "Go sit in the silence of your cell, and the silence of your cell will teach you everything." Perhaps this presentation raises more questions for you than it gives answers. In a way, I hope it is so. Rainer Maria Rilke is famous for his invitation to live the questions. More and more, I experience living the questions with an open mind and heart as one of the most important things we can do as we walk the way of Jesus. Let me conclude my presentation with this poetic and prayerful invitation by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. It resonates with Rilke's invitation to live the questions. Teilhard was a Jesuit priest of the last century, a paleontologist who was part of the team that discovered the Peking man in China, a mystic, an author, a creative theologian who discerned companionship among science and faith and the movement of God through evolution toward a fulfillment of divine intention. This famous prayer poem named, "Above All, Trust in the Slow Work of God," with which we conclude this presentation, reflects so much of who Teilhard was and offers us insight into the lives that we live. Above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are quite naturally impatient in everything to reach the end without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We are impatient of being on the way to something unknown, something new. Yet it is the law of all progress that is made by passing through some stages of instability, and that may take a very long time. And so I think it is with you. Your ideas mature gradually. Let them grow. Let them shape themselves without undue haste. Do not try to force them on as though you could be today what time, that is to say, grace and circumstances acting on your own goodwill will make you tomorrow. Only God could say what this new spirit gradually forming in you will be. Give our Lord the benefit of believing that His hand is leading you, and accept the anxiety of feeling yourself in suspense and incomplete. May we all find ways that are especially right for us to discover more and more how to be present in the presence, how to live out of that deeper consciousness, how to pray without ceasing in this way, how to lean back into the spiritual heart for healing and wholeness and discernment, and to lean forward into life with compassion and courage and creativity, knowing afresh that we do not journey alone, for we have companions who journey with us, and we are always, always held in the loving presence of the beloved.